Alright, New York AM session 10 to 11 server bullet. There we go, pre-market analysis. Pretty huge opening range gap at the start of today's 9:30 session. Over 900 some handles, which is significantly large in terms of the range. And usually when we see this large of a opening range gaps, there is quite a likelihood or possibility to see a continuation lower. Rather than expecting the consecutive encroachment to get tagged. So yeah, probably observing the lower quadrant. That will be here. It's like the max on the upside that I would anticipate initially. There is some near-term buy sell liquidity above us. That's kind of smooth overall. But I don't know, I'm not trying to call or try to pick at a bottom within this run lower. This is the first presented fair value gap for today's trading. All right, so ES is seeing some lift to the upside. Short term, Nasdaq is seeing some lift to the upside too. Both are being sucked up into its own respective opening range gaps. Relative equal highs, buy sell liquidity cleared out. First presentation. On ES. Well, let's see. I mean, I don't have a very clear idea about what price may want to do for this particular session. I do feel a little bit disconnected. So that's something to keep in mind, I suppose. Nasdaq left beautiful, clean radical highs. But the ES pretty much did very similar. ES also has a very clean, smooth buy side liquidity that it left in place. We've taken sell side liquidity on both ES and Nasdaq. We pushed that quite significantly. We have some inefficiencies that we could reasonably expect to trade back into them potentially. But again, it's kind of tricky to try to call a low of the day like this. So yeah, I guess let's see and watch how and if we can reach the lower quadrant of the opening range gap on the upside. That would be like the line in the sand, I would say. Yes, traded below that previous week's new week opening gap, slightly below it. Had some radical lows, stabbed below them, made them jagged, pulled back inside the range. It also has quite a large opening range gap. It's pretty large as for the ES market. But we just reached the lower quadrant of that. Well, I'm going into this session without a very clear idea what I want to do, what I want to achieve. So that's probably not the best sign. But yeah, that's what it is. If I'm gonna be honest. Right, so basically the opening range repriced aggressively higher. We couldn't quite reach the lower quadrant yet, but I would say that's a reasonable objective on the upside. If we may. Consecutive encroachment with that large of opening range gap isn't usually the go-to. But again, I don't have a very clear idea about what it wants to do actually in here. There is some smooth bias liquidity up here that I would generally like on the upside. All right, so Nasdaq is trading into a bearish fair value gap here on the 4-hour chart. But it's quite hard to expect that this one should offer much of a resistance. It could definitely, but wet. Yeah, I mean, I gotta admit, I really don't have a clear idea about what should unfold next. I kind of like the relative equal highs here, and it kind of makes it kind of looks like it maybe wants to reach up there, but I don't know. We just tagged the lower quadrant of the opening range gap. In here, we took it with a fair value gap. We enter the 10 to 11 silver bullet hour for today. Yeah, I don't know, but it feels pretty difficult to get a feel for it. It seems like it wants to seek some bias liquidity still, or at least it has a potential to do so. Will it ultimately fulfill that? We trade outside of this daily suspension block, but we are already above 50% of that. I don't know, gun to my head, this hourly fair value gap on ES makes a lot of sense on the upside. And ES is near term stronger, at least it looks like it is. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, kinda. It is what it is. Yeah, I mean, ES rather, I mean, went easily to the lower quadrant of its opening range gap. And it's even in a close proximity to the consecutive encroachment, so the 50% level of it, too, relatively in close proximity. It has just a little bit more of the range left to potentially reach that point. We see relative equal lows here that were made jagged, and then price displaced higher aggressively. With that, all of that structure, thinking about the consecutive encroachment on ES, that should overlap with this hourly CB. That would be something to consider, I suppose, on the upside. Bearing or assuming that any continuation lower is less likely at this moment. But even if that's the case, it would be preferred to see a measure of retracement first or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. Gun to my head, I think that's reasonable still on the upside. For ES especially, Nasdaq is a little bit weaker near term. But I mean, it's a large range. They are really poking it higher and higher and higher and higher. They already moved a lot since the 930, right? We do have some SMT on the lows. When we look at the closing prices, ES failed to close to make lower closes, while Nasdaq made lower closing prices. So there is some measure of SMT on the lows, nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's really fishing for that consecutive encroachment of the opening range gap, but I don't think that's something I can trade. Well. Yeah, so the target and or the little draw that I pointed to initially for ES is basically in crosshairs. So let's see if we can actually get that. But other than that, I really have hard time to justify or navigate a proper next directional movement. Yeah, quite quite a difficult session for me personally here. So, because I can't really like formulate a very one-sided idea, higher or lower. I mean, maybe that was like a little bit of a one-sided idea that this fair value gap here on ES can be or could be likely draw. But besides that, I really don't know. I mean, after we reach that, I don't know. It could go higher, it could go lower, it could go sideways, which means these aren't basically the probabilities that usually I would look for to trade in, right? And yeah. All right, so there you go. We reached that hourly inefficiency here that I was thinking that we could draw up into it. And yeah, right now, I don't know. Right now it depends. We could go above it and continue. We could consolidate. We could turn around a little bit. Very, very tricky to state. Very one-sided idea at this moment. So yeah. So far we booked the premium level here, but the bodies are stopping at the consecutive encroachment here. No, it's actually the opening range gap. Consecutive encroachment. But yeah, there are some primaries nested around this area. Yeah, I mean Nasdaq looks clearly weaker, I would say, versus ES this morning session at least. All right, so looks like we are making a little bit of a turnaround. Have you taken any trades today? No, I have not. All right, so this is the near-term buy-side liquidity where it's left. That's like the breaker here on the downside. This is exactly what we are looking for. All right. But yeah, so far we tapped into it, yes, but only with a wick, and the bodies are staying outside of it. That's not the very best bearish signature at the moment. So yeah, if you are going to see a little bit of downside near term, the BSC from 947 on both ES and Nasdaq would be a initial point of interest on the downside. But yeah, it's kind of still a little bit of I mean a little bit ambitious to expect that at this moment in time. We are trading into this 10 a.m. fair value gap, and the bodies are staying outside of it. We can't even close inside of it on the 1 minute candle. That's not necessarily very bearish. We have a potential bearish order block here on both ES and Nasdaq, but with all of this price action so far, it's kind of hard to trust that this is going to offer reasonable bearishness. I mean, we'll see, but this is just what I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, it isn't looking very easy to engage this price action overall or after all. So yeah, I mean, also like basically since 10 a.m. started on Nasdaq, we only made this little comeback into this 10 a.m. fair value gap, bullish value gap, and a little bit of a run higher was pronounced, but that was a rather sloppy run higher. ES had a little bit more of a protraction there, but also like not much in terms of like entry opportunities. So yeah, both ways, it's rather choppy ever since 10 a.m., which is, I guess, reasonable because how large the opening range gap. I mean, not of the opening range gap. The opening range gap, yes, it was very large too, but the opening range itself, the first 30 minutes, covered a lot of ground. in itself, which makes this, or which made this a little bit trickier here, I believe. But let's see, we are diving below this 10 a.m. fair value gap, bullish fair value gap on Nasdaq. So let's see if we can close below it. Let's see if we can actually close below it. I'm watching ES2 doing the same thing, or trying to do the same thing. All right, so we close below it. So now let's change the color to the inversion color, and let's see if it can act as a premium array now. It should act as one. ES didn't quite close below it yet, but we are trading outside of it too. And again, with this initial price swing from the low to the high, the 947 busy on both ES and Nasdaq. Nasdaq seems to be weaker, so I would expect the Nasdaq to be more likely to reach down into it, but regardless, we'll see. All right, so we close below it on ES2. So technically on both ES and Nasdaq, the 10 a.m. bullish fair value gap should act as a bearish inversion fair value gap now, so it should offer resistance. And truth to be told, I kind of like the idea to see it reject price and trade to this busy here. That would kind of make sense. It doesn't need to do that, but that kind of makes sense a little bit. But let's see. Oh, we already trade to the high of that inversion fair value gap. We already trade outside of it on ES even. So that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. Let's see where the body will close. The body is closing near the low, so that's positive on Nasdaq. ES is definitely looking stronger. But yeah, I don't know if I would have the courage to just short it, just for the banter, just to see what will happen after all here. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that I don't know what it wants to do next. I don't know whether it wants to go higher or lower next for a greater price swing. Therefore, I'm kind of like thinking or trying to think about it in terms of trading inside of the range, right, that we are currently having, and trading inside of the range from this inversion fair value gap here to this busy here. That's like a opportunity that I can reasonably see unfold or expect to unfold theoretically, right? That's something that would make sense at this moment. ES has or should have rather easier time. But yeah, ES can follow. All right, so I mean, if I were short here, I would not like to see this rally above this inversion fair value gap. That's no good. We do have a little bit of SMT on the lows here because Nasdaq failed to make a lower low while ES did make a lower low here. That's a very good one, EOET. I mean, that's respectable for sure. But yeah, right now it's pretty difficult to tell. It seems like it wants to go and make a higher high right there, near term, potentially, but still, dollar index is pushing higher, so that should apply some pressure on indices too, preventing or making the longs having a rather hard time or harder time at least. Well, I mean, Nasdaq still has the buy side liquidity here that I personally like. As a potential draw, right? It still has that open, yes. So technically, I could or would maybe like to see Nasdaq reach up into it, and that would make some sense to me for sure. But yeah, we are nailing aggressively below it currently. Well, I mean, that is looking kind of like a wild card, but I like that we stopped right before the buy side here, then a little bit of retracement, fine. We failed to use this as a bearish inversion initially. We went above it. We failed to reclaim it. Now we are below it. Open up, trade into it, trading lower. So yeah, I suppose if we go back above it again after taking the short-term sell set here, that maybe would have been or could have been a little bit more prompt to deliver the buy side there still. Otherwise, as long as we stay below that inversion fair value gap, it seems like this basically might be something to look for. Let me see how would that look like in terms of a setup. I have reduced. I need to use the reduced risk, nonetheless, and the target would be here, maybe slightly above, but I wouldn't like to be too aggressive about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty difficult. All right, so I would need to do something like this if I wanted to use this as a bullish reclaim for value gap. After we've taken those radical lows here, we traded to that lower bullish for value gap only with a week. The body's staying higher. So if we would go on a closing basis above that, then return back into it, that would be somewhat of an idea that I would like to aim for, that radical highs buy side liquidity. Instead. Yeah, so we'll see if we can go above it on a closing basis strongly, and then that would be like an idea. Why would I like to do that? Because the lows are very, very much jagged here. They are very sharp, and the damage was done on the lows, while this is way too smooth, and we stopped just ahead of that level. So there is unfinished business above us still here. Therefore, I'm suspecting that price could or may want to revisit that buy side liquidity up there. But yeah, not the easiest session, to be honest. So yeah, last 16 minutes left. We'll see. So far we are using the inversion for value gap and repricing somewhat aggressively towards the BSI here. So, I mean, as long as we are below it and we are respecting it as resistance, that's the most reasonable draw on the downside. Will we reach that? I don't know, but definitely that might be in the cards. So let's see. Yeah, so Nasdaq is making a lower low. ES is failing to make a lower low here currently, and ES is having a hard time to even go through this fair value gap there, while Nasdaq is a little bit weaker in a sense. All right, so we trade into this little fair value gap here. So far, we are seeing a little bit of sensitivity down there. ES is basically doing or trying to mimic that a little bit, staying stronger, but nonetheless gravitating towards this first presentation. I mean, it has the first presentation lower, but the species is reasonable. So yeah, it looks like it's heavy here. It looks like it's gonna seek this first presentation, and And yeah, I guess that will be like my last chance, last idea to see how we trade around that, if we can trade into it, because maybe that would be like an area of interest to potentially turn around and go back for the buy side here that was left, just to book some measure of discount. We'll see. If that's the case, it should not close below it probably, and the upper half should be very well respected. But yeah, let's see, 13 minutes left. Am I sure that I'm not marrying a bullish bias? Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to not have any bias right now, because I really don't have a very clear idea about it. But if I have, if I had to use something, to look for something, I like the radical highs overall here, potentially as a draw near term. But yeah, uh, I'm aware of the possibility of the price that might want to reach down into this first presentation on Nasdaq, and I would gladly allow for that to happen first, if it wants to do that. I mean, initially I wouldn't necessarily favor a continuation through that, because how much damage was done here already earlier. But yeah, let's see. So yeah, we will be heading into the macro 1050 to 1110 macro also. This is the fractal that we are seeing or having right now currently, from this low to this high. That was the buy side of the curve, then the sell side of the curve. So this is a market maker sell model indeed. The only thing that I'm anticipating or a little bit concerned about is the fact that I'm assuming, maybe I'm assuming too much, but I'm assuming that this market maker sell model is more likely to fail and not reach below those lows, and potentially seek back a continuation to clear out the partial liquidity there. And how I will want to judge whether it will actually fail or not is this BESI and how we trade into it. If the price trades into it and respects it very well and displaces higher, then that's clearly or very likely not going to go for the low, but the buy side instead. If we can't even reach down into it, that's potentially bullish too, right? So yeah, generally the idea is, if we will climb above this inversion fair value gap here, that should act as a bullish reclaimed fair value gap. If we go above it, we are storming through higher quite strongly there. So we'll see, but if we go above it, I would like to see it act as a discount array and send price higher nonetheless. So yeah. All right, so we are seeing some measure of displacement lower now. So let's see. I would say that if it wants to reach that lower busy, that first presentation, it should do it from where we are right now, and it should just drop down into it aggressively and quickly. And it's doing so far. Well, so that's interesting. That's nice. If we could tap into it and then see how and if we get any reaction off of that busy, that would be telling whether potential continuation towards the buy side would be valid or not. Yeah, well, let's see. I'm running a little bit short on time. 6 minutes left. We are approaching almost that first presentation here. Nasdaq made a lower low. Yes, not. And we are just hanging above it. All right, there we go. So Nasdaq did or made a touch to the high of that busy first presentation. ES is not even close to that higher one at this moment. So yeah, in my opinion, if this were to make a continuation higher, we met minimum criteria to expect that. So far we touched it, but we couldn't even close inside of it. And the next candle is right away trading slightly higher. So you have this potential bullish reclaimed fair value gap here, and we have potential this one here that we could potentially use if we can go above those. So yeah, that looks something like this here. Yeah, but yeah, it is kind of tricky though. It is kind of tricky. I'm assuming a lot, maybe, I don't know. But I do favor that buy side liquidity. I like the first presentation here. Maybe I could even use that first presentation in itself as a means of entry. and it would look something like this here. Well, I mean, so far I like how price couldn't even lay a body inside of this, and it basically left it open as it is, and it's kind of like turning around. So any close above this is a potential bullish reclaimed fair value gap that could send price higher, I would say. But yeah, I mean, it's already past the 11 a.m. so I cannot engage this anyway. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Not the easiest session after all, to be honest. The only thing that kind of made sense was this inversion for value gap to this first presentation as a run. It delivered, yes, but yeah, not much besides that. So it looks like the PM session will be my go-to again today. So second day in the row. Let's see what we get there. Nonetheless, so yeah, thanks for watching. Kudos to you guys, and see you PM session. Bye bye.